Well, ladies and gentlemen, opening weekend is over. Civil War, Wagner's March for Justice, has proven to be a complete and total box office flop. It failed so poorly that they're removing it from theaters. Many of the directors, the producers, and even some of the actors have fled and have gone into hiding in other countries to escape disappointed fans. This is despite the fact that the media gave this film amazing reviews. They were giving it reviews. They said this was the greatest Ukrainian cinematic universe movie since Ghost of Kiev. They were supporting it. They were saying we need to bring in like the Russian Freedom Army and the Russian Volunteer Corps in for the next part of the film, in for part two when we take down Putin, who's the big supervillain. But the whole thing just proved to be like a complete flop. Critics said it was amazing. It was like Cuties 2.0, where like 95% of critics in the Western media were like, this movie is amazing. And people, the average person, was just like, it's super lame. So it's over and done now. And once again, it was not a good idea to hire M. Night Shyamalan to make this film because there was going to be a twist. I mean, if any of you have seen the movie Glass, we had two unironically good movies from M. Night Shyamalan, Splice and Unbreakable. And we were heading into the third movie, and it was going to be a crossover between the two. It was going to be epic. And like halfway through the film, it was set up that there was going to be some big fight, like with bombs and helicopters and stuff at some big building. And then you just had this lame, like nonsense in the parking lot. And Bruce Willis died, and the film just ended. It just stopped. And that's what happened in this case. We were going to have like the March on Moscow, the March on the Third Rome, as someone in my comment sections put it. Prigozhin was going to set himself up as like shogun. He was maybe going to find like the last Romanov heir. Um, it was going to be epic, but M. Night Shyamalan just couldn't resist. We just got this lame twist at the end, and it's just a nothing borscht, as I put it. It's a borscht with no beets and no beef. It's just some onions and potatoes in lukewarm water, not even cooked. And so the makers of the Ukraine cinematic universe are trying to figure out what to do because they invested a lot of time and money in this. They paid off a lot of media professionals, and they won't have access to the staff anymore. It was so unpopular. We're not going to get the Wagner James Bond reboot. That's not going to happen. Prigozhin's not going to be the new Blofeld or the new Doctor No or whatever he was going to be set up to be. So they have to salvage this one. Now, audiences are reporting that Wagner's Civil War: The March for Justice was so bad it's good. That the sheer absurdity of it, the illogical aspects of it, it is gone so far in the bad direction. It's gone from being like a Marvel film to being a DC film, where every aspect of it was so poorly conceived, so illogical, and so retarded that people are actually liking it. So it turns out that M. Night Shyamalan had shot like 20 hours of additional footage that was being stored in a Belarusian salt mine. Points if any of you get that reference. And while the footage was starting to decay, it was going to take a couple more years. So they're going to take that footage and they're going to re-edit this into a couple different movies. We're going to have like a road trip comedy film. We're going to call it Prigozhin and Wagner's Bizarre Adventure. And it's going to start off with them getting drunk and high, and they're going to decide to take on the Russian government, and they're just going to like drive through Russia, this big convoy, and there's going to be some hijinks. They're going to stop at like a couple farms and try to pick up some Russian farm girls. They're going to try to. There's going to be a scene where like the entire convoy stops outside of a car park, and they just every like all 2,000 of the guys try to siphon gasoline out of the parked cars. There's some scenes like that. There's going to be some scatological humor. We're going to have a scene where a Wagner tank drives into a sewage truck or sewage canister, and they get shit all over them, and everyone laughs at that dude. and he's ultimately the one who betrays them. And what's going to happen is their march on Moscow is going to be stopped because they run out of gasoline and they try to put the vodka in the gas tanks, and the vodka doesn't work in the gas tanks, obviously. And so the convoy breaks down, and then Putin comes in on like riding a horse and is just like, "Look, guys, you just got to stop." And he gives this big epic speech about patriotism. It's basically Henry V's speech, but with like more comedic. And then they back down and just leave, and then that's the end of the movie. So that's going to be number one. Number two, we're going to have a existentialist, like Slavic film, so it's going to be super depressing and fatalistic and stuff. And it's going to be about the inevitability of death and when you're and what you do while you're alive. We're going to take some stuff from Gladiator. We're going to take some stuff from Stalker, where Prigozhin is going to go into the zone of alienation in Ukraine. He's going to talk to the wish granter, and he's going to wish that he could successfully lead a coup to become the ruler of Russia, to become Kolchak 2.0. And the thing grants his wish. And so the irony is the successful coup is that he gets out of it with his life and his boys get out of it with his life. See, the wish granter is like a monkey's paw. It grants wishes, but it grants them in like a really bad way. And I mean, it remains to be seen if he's even going to make out of this alive, if some bizarre accident's going to happen, if it's like a Slavic version of It Follows, where the FSB is going to just be following him around and he meditates on the inevitability of death and whether or not he achieved everything that he hoped to achieve in his lifetime. And we have all kinds of other stuff planned, some tie-ins. We're going to have the Wagner burger at the various McDonald's that the Russians took over. We're going to have the Volga fried Prigozhin's chicken. I couldn't come up with something better. We're gonna have that. We're gonna have all these tie-ins, and kind of just dropping the whole UCU thing for a second. Why is everything so fake in Gisler? Like, don't get me wrong. It's great that this didn't cause the Russian state to collapse. That this didn't cause the war to collapse. That this didn't lead to like an actual civil war, an actual uprising where tens of thousands of Russians died in like complete and total nonsense. I mean, that's all good, but it's just like we're gonna do this coup, we're gonna do this march on Moscow, and then they just stop and they just leave. You know what this is? This is like, does anyone remember that whole Area 51 thing, where there's like 3 million people who were gonna go and storm Area 51, and everyone was like super afraid, and they got out the National Guard or whatever and the police force, and then only like a couple hundred people showed up, and it was just a complete and total, like it was just the lamest thing possible. That's what this kind of feels like to me. It's just like, what was even the thought process that went into this? And I just want to think for a second, like the logistics of this, and by that I mean like what actually happened. So like these dudes got into this big convoy. They were literally just driving across Russia. Like, how did they get gas? Did they have like a tanker? Was it like Bad Backs where they had this big tanker full of gas that they were taking with them? Some people were coming up with like the mental images of they were stopping at like a gas station. They're like, fill her up, and there's the convoy of armored vehicles. I mean, I had my thing where they were like siphoning gas or something, and like they how like presumably they had rations, but they run out of rations. You have like the BMPs going through the McDonald's drive-through. They're like, we're gonna need like 500 cheeseburgers and like 1,000 orders of fries for the entire army. And then you have all the soldiers who are like giving their preferences, like no pickles. And the Muslim soldiers, I assume there's some Muslim soldiers, are like no pork. And then, like, is that how this thing went down? And when they were occupying Rostov, like what happened? Were they just sitting? They just went in and just sat around, and were like just talking to random people in the street. They're like, "Yeah, we're carrying out a military uprising. It's pretty cool. It's better than working. It's better than digging trenches. It's better than fighting in Bakhmut. We're gonna overthrow the Russian state. We're gonna put in a new Putin. Prigozhin is going to become the supreme ruler of Russia. He's going to become Kolchak 2.0. It's going to be the white movement all over again. Russia's going to be saved. Is that like, was that what was going on? And like, how awkward would it have been when they were in Rostov and they were just facing off against the Russian regular army, and Prigozhin, the vice defense minister, was just talking, and it was just like, can you imagine them just talking to the regular Russian army? It's like, oh, Vlad, hey, how you doing? Yeah, we fought side by side at at Donetsk City, and it's like, yeah, what are you guys doing here? And I'm like, I don't know. Prigozhin got really drunk, and he decided it was a good idea to attempt a military coup. It's like, that sounds like a really bad idea, and it's like, yeah, it was a bad idea, but I mean, I didn't really have anything else to do that day. I was on latrine duty. And I thought it would be better to march on Moscow. I got to ride along. We're playing some Ride of the Valkyries. You get it? Because it's Wagner. We're playing some Wagner while Wagner is having. Maybe they had like giant loudspeakers and they were just blasting Wagner operas while they were driving through Rostov. And while they were driving north to Moscow, and then they were like halfway to Moscow, and they just stopped. Like I like the idea that they just sobered up, or Prigozhin's like the meth or whatever he was doing just wore off, and he's like, "Holy shit, this was a bad idea." Nothing about this makes any kind of sense, but it's like, if those pilots didn't die, and that was just kind of like Prigozhin, like, was drunk and said that. This whole thing is kind of funny. Like, it does feel like some sort of comedy, like some sort of like some Tropic Thunder shit, like some military comedy that is a parody of the war and a parody of like how Russia does things, like Canadian Bacon or something. But it's just the mental imagery of like this column of like a couple thousand basically losers driving towards Moscow on a road trip. Maybe they just ran out of gas. Maybe that's what stopped this stupid coup. Was they just ran out of gas halfway through. I don't know. It's insanity. But I mean, we can laugh about it now because it doesn't seem like it led to a civil war. No one maybe even died. If some people did die, then it's sad. And then it's sad, and I feel bad for them and their families that they died engaging in this retardation. But who even knows? It might be years before we know what even happened. I mean, the truth might just be so weird that like when it comes out, we don't even no one even believes it. It'll be like Marco Polo 2.0. So that is the update. If anything else happens, I'll let you know. I just had to do something to make fun of this whole thing. It's so fucking stupid. It's so stupid. It's literally an M Night Shyamalan film. Oh boy.